Okay. So, like I said, I just have a few slides to kind of kick us off today. So, obviously, we're working with the pre-work, working with the case study, and what we're mimicking, remember, for pre-work is a very small sampling and taste of the independent review process. So, the independent review process is a 5-step process where you review the criteria, read the application, create the key factors list, analyze the application, and document your strengths and OFAs. Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning.
So, again, kind of put us back into the TNCPE world, push all of our work world aside. This is what was frame up what we're going to talk about today. So, steps 1 and 2, remember, were to review the criteria and read the application. How is that going?
It's going okay.
I'm hearing laughing and it's going okay.
It's
I mean,
going.
it's
Going.
going.
Okay.
You know,
I,
I get a page and then it's like, okay, I've looked at one page, we're good. It's
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going back and forth between the criteria and the application often. And so find myself rereading things quite often as well. So, but it's going.
Yeah.
honestly, the hardest part for me, because I am dyslexic, is all of the abbreviations. So that
Yes.
just slows me down so much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I even without challenges, reading challenges, that's a slower, that creates a lot of slowness as well. All right. So reading the application, do you agree that it does not read like a novel? You're like, oh, it's
Absolutely.
50 pages. I can knock out 50.
No, it's not interesting. There's no crime scenes, like nothing. No.
I mean, it's interesting from a business perspective to see how another organization runs, but it is not at all interesting as far as building a story line. There's no love interest, there's no main characters,
No drama, no plot. Yeah, so it's challenging.
Kelly, I keep remembering Rachel, one of the Rachels said that there were a time where you all had only 2 weeks to review an application. I'm thinking, man, 2 weeks. And I'm finding myself, like I said, rereading and
Mhm.
going back and comparing to the criteria. And I'm like, 2 weeks?
I
2 weeks,
know.
yeah. I will
Yeah.
say that generally happens with our lower level applications. So like a level 2, it's 15 pages. They're responding basic questions. So it is a little bit faster to get through a level 2 in 2
Okay.
weeks, but whew, it's
That puts me at ease a little bit more.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not going to be this level in 2 weeks.
Okay. Gotcha.
Normally our level 4s, when we built the timeline for when independent review is due and consensus and all of that, it's based on when you as a team can go on site with the applicant. And so whatever that date is, everything sort of backs up from there based on milestones and due dates of when things need to happen within the progression. So typically our level 4s are later, that mid-October range is when the site visit is. So you've got a little bit more time on the front end to do site visit or a independent review and consensus before you go into site visit. Yep. This is why we ask everybody to keep your fall calendar as open as you can. So August to, not even really August to September, but October, in mid-September to mid-October, the freer you can keep those dates for your team, it makes it a whole lot easier for us to build a rational timeline for these reviews. There's Penny. Oh, you're on mute.
I've been trying to get that camera to work for several days. Finally, there we go.
It's a process improvement. You just had to come to a TNCPE meeting and hear about how other organizations work.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right. Well, our next thing we're going to get into is the key factors. Remember, this is the 18 to 24, 25-ish key facts about the organization. And those come directly from, does anybody know?
Org profile.
Or
The organizational profile. That's right. Very good. So when you're building that list, remember, whatever the question is in the criteria, find the answer in the case study, okay, or in the application. So this is going to be one of those things that out of everything is probably the fastest paced piece. So let's talk a little bit about your key factors. How are we doing on key factors? What questions do we have?
I feel like it's going well. There are a couple things, and I do recall in the presentation where you guys described that you could have other key factors that aren't necessarily pinpointed in the org profile. I did have like maybe one or two that I felt like could be considered a key factor, even though it wasn't in the org profile or explicitly pronounced in the org profile. But yeah, I followed the headers, and I know you guys said just regurgitate. I just tried to bullet point out for my sanity some of the language instead of having it in like just a blob of a paragraph. So,
Right, exactly.
but yeah, but that it's going okay, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up, Ebony, because I was trying to figure it out too. The blob, I think the paragraph form, I don't know, I can't wrap my mind around it. So I was trying to do like bullet points. I don't know if that's worth
Yeah.
it, but what are your thoughts, Kelly?
Bullet points are really great. I tend to we coined a term. There's the lumper versus the separatists. So when doing key factors, you're either one of two modes. You either lump everything together, so you kind of end up with a blob, or you're separatists, so you end up with a few more key factors, but
Okay.
it's a shorter method. So let's see, Lila, did you say you were a lumper?
I'm a big time lumper. I always have been.
So I tend to break things out a little bit more finite,
Mm-hmm.
just so it's a little easier for me to get to. But that's how my brain thinks. So I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. I will tell you, when we actually get on SharePoint and you're doing a real application, the system, the application you will use, the software that you will use, it's got a text box when you put that description in. And so that text box has some basic formatting, and it allows you to do bullet points and numbering, and it allows you to bold things and underline things and italicize things, which is a little, you can sort of mimic it in Excel, but it's just not as intuitive.
Okay.
But, for this exercise, there's no right or wrong way. I definitely agree, if you're going to be a lumper, be prepared when we get into the actual team work to do some bullet points, so that lump isn't just a block of data or information. So you want to make sure that you're at least separating it out in some way with underlines or italicis, just to designate some different key things that you're talking about within that one block.
No, I think I'm a separatist. I got a lot happening over here.
So I'll pop this in here for when I do mine, and since I'm a lumper, like if I'm gonna put mission, vision, and values all in one key factor, I'm going to bold the word mission and then
Mm.
put the mission in. And then I'll hit on Excel, it's Alt Enter, that you can go to a new line. So then I'll put vision in there and bold it. And so that's sort of what I do is I bold my key terms so I can see inside my key factor what's what.
Okay.
Same. That makes a lot of sense.
That does, yeah.
Does anybody have a key factors list they would like to share screen and talk through what you're seeing and get some advice? That's going to be a big fat no, is what I heard there.
I'm gonna go to Liv and say that too.
I have
Oh,
mine printed, and so I don't have them to share on screen, but
okay,
yeah.
that's totally okay. That's totally
Okay.
okay.
Very impressive because I'm using this to make me get started. I'm being honest with you. I signed up for this meeting to make me get started because I have a couple of days off. So it's like I'm going to get my mind thinking back about it, because part of it is I'm using this since I'm going to be in Nashville in July, so that I
Okay.
don't push it off. Keep my
That's
mind
exactly right. Because
focused.
did everybody hear the warnings? Do not wait to do this. Do not wait to do this. So I'm glad to hear you're either using this as a refocus and reframe time, or as a way of saying I'm gonna hit certain milestones so that when I cut 4 skills labs. So I think it's worth it either way, because to your point, Penny, you get information like the difference between a lumper versus a separatist, and tips and tricks on how to break out your key factors so that it makes it a little easier to digest in the
Yeah.
future.
I honestly we just physically got our framework. I got mine this morning, so it arrived into my hot little hands. So I was excited to have it to physically flip through instead of trying to, use the computer.
Yeah.
So I could do it easier.
Do we have a timeline when we'll be able to have ours as well? Because I think it'll be easier to flip through as well, our framework.
I think everything's been mailed out. Let me check on that for you.
Okay.
I'm making myself a note.
Okay.
Okay.
I am going to go back and print some copies that I can desecrate, but just having this in a binder, I know that sounds stupid, but having it in a binder makes it official, and I can flip, and it makes more sense.
Absolutely. And you're welcome to print the criteria if you want a hard copy and don't want to wait on the book. But yes, absolutely. I know a lot of people that do it. They actually prefer it printed in the 3-ring binder because it makes it a little easier to tag things and tab things. And you could even, if you wanted to, print it on a single page instead of front and back, so you can do it a little bit easier. All kinds of things. Rachel, I see your note about the printed materials. Did you want a printed or a hard copy? I'm only sending it out to those who have requested a hard copy. But if you would like a hard copy of the criteria book, I can send you one.
I would love one. Yes, I would love one too. And Kelly, I'll email you my contact info.
Awesome. So I have Rachel and Talicia. Did somebody else say they wanted one? Okay. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. So then the next step we're going to get into is where we're analyzing the application itself. Remember, this is kind of 4 micro steps from the bigger process, which you're going to kind of reground yourself in the criteria in the application just for that particular item. You're going to find the 4 to 6 most relevant key factors for that item, and you're going to kind of jot those down on a notepad. Then you're going to conduct your analysis. And as you're doing your analysis for each observation you're making, for each strength or OFE, you're going to look at your jotted notes on your 4 to 6 most relevant key factors for that item and decide which ones are most relevant for that particular observation. And then finally, you're going to go through this sort of prioritization process and identify what are the most important around 6 observations you want to pursue going into consensus and site visit to better understand what's going on within the application and the applicant. So has anyone gotten a chance to start 2.2 yet? All right. Any questions on this? Like, you've walked away from orientation, you started working on your key factors, and you're like, I don't remember at all how to do 2.2. Yeah, I don't even remember this slide, Kelly.
We can go. I'm okay if everyone wants to go over it, just like a.
I am fine. My brain will need all of the refreshing it can get.
Okay, I'm fine with it too. Yes, I'm fine with it. I agree with Penny. I'm fine with going through it again.
Yeah. Okay. Let me. I'm going to switch us over to the. Give me 1 second. The beauty of making this time yours, you can ask for whatever you need, whatever you think you need. Okay, so let's talk about what category 4 is about, or not category 4. Step 4 is about. Okay, step 4. So remember, you're going to identify the key factors that are most relevant to your item that you're working on. And we gave you the pro tip of balancing, the keywords that are in the organizational profile versus the keywords you're going to see within the item. That'll give you some good clues as to some key factors that might be relevant for the organization as it pertains to a particular item. Obviously, in this example, it's item 5.2. Some other things that you might want to look at when you're doing an assessment is not only the keywords in here, but just some keywords that they've used throughout their organizational profile. So, for example, if they have a strategic threat of high turnover in their industry, even, that's going to be something that's pretty relevant to item 5.2, because we're talking about your workforce and how you engage them and how you maintain high performance and longevity of your employees. So having a high turnover rate as a strategic threat and solid engagement processes should help address that. So that might be a key factor that you would want to pick up for item 5.2, but that would be found directly in the application. So when we're looking at the 4 steps for the actual, again, the review and analysis, read the criteria, read the applicant's response for that item, identify those 4 to 6 key factors. Let's get into what it looks like to conduct your analysis. So do you remember this graphic where we talked about basic, overall, and multiple? Everybody
Yes.
pretty solid on this one?
Mm-hmm.
So basic, overall, and multiple is what's going to drive your determination of maturity. That's where this is going to come from. So the more questions you can answer down the page or down the outline, the more mature you're getting, because those questions get more specific as they get in deeper into a particular topic and subtopic. So you also want to look through the lens of your evaluation factors, right? So you have approach, deployment, learning, and integration for your process items. So let's just stick with 2.2 right now. So for 2.2, you're going to read the criteria for item for 2.2. You're going to go back in and you're going to reread item 2.2 for Synergy Utilities. You're going to take your key factors list that you've developed or in the process of developing, and you're going to identify 4 to 6 most relevant key factors specifically for item 2.2. Then you're going to get into your analysis. You're going to start with 2.2A1. You're going to say, what is their answer? Let's start at the overall question. What is their answer to that overall question for 2.2A1? And you're going to go into their application and you're going to find that answer. Okay. So then from that answer, you're going to determine, okay, did they fully answer that? Like, is that a pretty good answer? Did they start answering some of the multiple questions? So let's look at the multiple level questions. The multiple level questions might be talking about segmentation. It might be talking about, actually, let me pull up 2.2A1. And let's just talk about exactly what it talks about in the multiple. Okay. So 2.2A1 is talking about action plans and how Synergy Utilities develops its action plans from its strategy. So they should have an approach for that. That approach should be deployed. That approach should have some cycles of learning. And that approach should be integrated with other things. You may or may not see some answers to some of the multiple level questions that are underneath it. Like, how do you ensure that your action plans align with your strategic objectives? So if they're answering that question at some level of approach, deployment, learning, and integration, they're starting to get into the multiple level of their answer. So I'm gonna pause here. Did I confuse you, or does that resonate after you're seeing this again and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this?
No confusion. It definitely resonates.
Okay. All right. So it's kind of resonating. Noelle?
Very helpful to
Good.
have that refresher.
Penny, Talitha?
No, it's resonating.
Okay. Fantastic. So that's kind of how you're going to parse out whether you're at the basic, overall, and multiple level, and do they have approach, deployment, learning, and integration. Don't get hung up on your learning piece if the learning they're talking about is related to an outcome. So, good example of this one. Category 3 asks about your customer complaint management process. This is a very common example. The applicant says, oh, we do surveys to gather complaints, and we have a box in which we gather complaints at the front desk. And, you know, we have a phone number, you know, tell us how we're doing phone number that somebody can call. So these are the 3 modes in which we're gathering complaints. And so that's our approach. And all the departments are aware of this approach, and any complaint that come in get filtered to the appropriate department for response. Okay, pretty decent deployment answer, right? Then they say the complaints that are received, we work on and make adjustments based on those complaints. That's our cycle of learning. And then you'll see that those customer complaints filter into our strategic plan. They are used as part of our workforce development trainings. So now you've got some integration. Okay. Here's where you can get hung up. That response for cycles of learning that says they respond to and address those customer complaints is not a cycle of learning for the customer complaint process. Now it might be an input for an update to a process that you're going to talk about in category 6, like an operational type process. But it doesn't fix or change or modify the complaint process itself. That's what learning is. So try to kind of cut off any outcomes. Like, I've gotten this in, and this is what I do with that receipt, the receipt of those items. Those are outcomes of the process or outputs. Focus only on, here's my approach. Is that approach deployed? Is there a cycle of learning for that approach? And is that approach integrated? So we also gave you this kind of tooltip here. This is our Adley versus basic, overall, and multiple. When you're in your Excel sheets, like you've been doing your key factors, there is a tab that says optional Adley grid. You're welcome to use that as a note-taking tool before you transfer like your final observation over to your IR deliverable tab. But this might be a good way of at least getting started for item 2.2. Once you get into the once you see it, you'll start seeing it in your head, and you don't necessarily have to write it out this way. But at least for 2.2, for a couple of the areas to address within 2.2, I encourage you to just make notes using this grid so that your brain starts thinking in this way as you're evaluating that particular item and area to address. Then again, once you get into, halfway into 6.1, you're going, oh, I don't need the grid. I see it now. I can read it, and I can see the divides. Any questions on this grid? Any questions on anything I've said so far?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So we will have a strength or a OFI for 2.2A1, 2.2A2, each one of these sections in the criteria?
It's a good question. Not necessarily. So
Okay.
you might make notes of, well, this was missing cycles of learning, and this A2 is missing deployment, and see, let's go down. A5, isn't even an approach for A5, which is performance measures and identifying those. And then you're going to kind of put all those notes together, and they're going to say, okay, what is the most important thing that they need to know? Well, maybe measures is a pretty big deal for them, and missing an approach for gathering performance measures as part of their action plan development, it's a pretty big deal. I'd rather they address that before they address this integration issue they have up here in A1. Does that make sense?
Yes, that helps.
Yeah. So I will tell you, I sort of go down the page and sort of make notes on all the different pieces, all the different areas to address. And then I step back and I look at it holistically. You might have 3 or 4 of them that are missing cycles of learning. That might become one observation of a missing cycles of learning. Or you might have all of them that are in 2.2 have strong approaches and deployment. That might be one observation. So kind of keep that in mind as you're going through. You do not need to write a strength and an OFI for every single area to address. Some areas to address, it's all kind of standard practice. It's not something that really needs to be called out as a strength. And you just move on and find something else. Also remember that when we're looking at our round 6 observations, that's a round 6 total. So that's any combination of strengths and OFIs within that round 6. So you might end up with 7 observations, 3 of which are strengths and 4 are OFIs. Or, 5 and 3, whatever the case may be. And again, as you do this, as you get more practice with this, so you're going to get practice with this for 3 items here. You'll get practice again during 3-day training with some items, and then you'll go into your live application, and you're going to practice again for real this time. But you're gonna get into this, and you're going to do this for all 17 items. You will get faster at it. You will be able to read 2.2A1. I'm not going to make any notes on that because it didn't stand out as something that needs to be called out at this point. But for your processes for 2.2 for sure, I recommend going through each area to address and working through your ADLI and basic overall and multiple. Start at the overall level because this is a level 4 applicant. Start at the overall level. I wouldn't start at basic and move forward. Start at the overall level. Remember, however, cap yourself at 3 hours. So if you're on hour 2.5 and you're still making notes, stop, step back, and identify some of the observations you want. Spend the next 30 minutes doing some observations, actually on the deliverable page. If it doesn't come to 6, that's okay too. You definitely need some observations though. Otherwise you're going to feel like you don't have anything to contribute to the discussion when you get to 3-day training. So remember when you're using this grid. I'm sorry.
I was going to tell them I can offer them a little cheat, if you will, here to make this go faster. Go through and get yourself one strength. And then when you get there, now get an OFI before you go back and do another strength. What can happen is you'll end up with all these strengths and you still don't have an OFI, and you get into the training class and you need an OFI. So
Yes.
I would do a strength and then find an OFI and sort of go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
That way, if you run out of your 3 hours, you at least have one strength and one OFI, when you come into the training.
It's a good point, Lila.
I had a request So I have my notes and I'm looking back and can you send the slides? I've forgotten if I had asked for that
Yeah.
during training. I have my notes, but then I'm like, what was the slide?
All right. So what specifically? Did you have a specific question on this, Penny?
No, just I was just wondering if you could send me the slide deck because I had notes and I was like, yes, I have all that written down, but I can't read the slide. I was like,
Yes.
I wrote that
I made a
down.
note to myself to send the slide
Okay.
deck to everybody.
Yeah, I was like, I was laughing because you were saying that. I was like, I have a note from before. I was like, it's on, well, the other page. But I was laughing because I was like, but what did that little thing right there say?
And we have heard the call. So for 3-day training, what I'm planning to do is either do 2 slides per page, and then you'll have just some white space to write around it, or 1 slide with note lines underneath. We'll see how it ends up coming out. But I'm taking that back. Our eyes cannot handle the 3 slides per page.
It was hard then, but it was on the screen. It's now going back and looking at my notes. That's
Fair.
hard.
It's totally fair. It's totally fair. Okay. Let's get into prioritizing. So remember when we're talking about prioritizing, we're looking at taking your thinking about what's happening in 2.2 and identifying those around 6 that are most important. So up until this point, you're just sort of making notes on what you see. It's not a regurgitation, but it's definitely, okay, these are the words they say for approach. These are the words they say for deployment. These are the words they say for learning, or don't say, as the case may be. But when you get into prioritizing, we're really looking at synthesizing and doing some analysis of what's most important for that applicant. Okay. To Lila's point for the training, you definitely need some strengths and OFEs. Prioritization for the pre-work is a little bit harder to do because you do not have the benefit of having gone through all 17 items. So you will find when you're doing all 17 items, you might get into item 3.2 and something just leaps out of you as being an OFE that's pretty big, but it's something they completely missed as part of their strategic planning process. They've like missed a whole step that you didn't pick up on the first time. So you can go back to 2.1 and say, man, this is really a priority OFE they need to address. So I'm going to kind of knock down one of the ones I've already listed. So prioritization really is not only do you do it at the item level, then you kind of go back and you do it at the full category level, and then you go back and you do it at the full application level. So that, but you don't have that benefit for pre-work. So just do the best you can, but don't get hung up on prioritization. Make notes, get notes down, write some observations. That's what we're really looking for. If you get into a prioritization, do things like, oh, I see 3 things that are around cycles of learning, so I'm gonna make that one observation. That is a method of prioritizing. Okay. And then documenting your analysis. Let's talk about the deliverable worksheets. Any questions, comments, concerns on these I know some of you have already been working with them from a key factors perspective. It looks like, Ebony, you are working with them. Have you run into any hiccups or challenges?
No challenges that are your fault at all. I didn't realize that there was the drop down. So took me a minute, but I figured that out, and so we're all good. Yeah. But it's self-explanatory, based off the training and your tutelage. So I think I'm good there. Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. We tried to make it as process driven as possible. So you should kind of think through each column. So you get each piece of the documentation that you need, but also as helpful as possible. So where we could put a drop down, we did. So that you're not having to just go in and type this in every time. Fantastic. Any questions or concerns? Has anybody gotten out on the website and looked at any of those resources out there? Are they helpful? Do you have any trouble getting to them? Any questions? Something you wish you had that you didn't? Okay, I'm hearing silent equals consensus. So what I'm hearing is everything is great when it comes to the website and the tools that are out there, at least for now.
Yeah,
Up to
I
the
would
point
agree.
you are now. Talisha, did you have a question or a comment?
No, I was just saying I would agree. They're fine up until now, the resources and so forth.
Good.
Kelly, will the skills labs like currently that we're in right now, will the recording be available or is it not? Okay.
So it'll give me a couple of days because I'll need to do some light editing of
Okay.
this, but we'll get it up on the website. So let's see, is today Wednesday? I don't even know what date it is.
Yes. Days.
Um, uh, look for it either over the weekend or first thing on Monday morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It'll be on the website. And I tell you what, everybody, I will make a commitment to you by close of business today. I will have the slides up in that resources so you can download them from there. Is that helpful?
Yes, that will be.
Good. I can do that. All right. Well, it's 10:45. That's sort of come to the end of the discussion that I had set up for us. Of course, we have your pre-work assignment. Everybody's clear on the actual assignment. Any questions on the assignment? Okay. Any questions on the time commitment? Has anybody tried working these pro tips and how's it going for you?
It's going fine. The setup was definitely 20 minutes of just getting the things placed out, finding my files and getting things organized. I'm used to that though. I understand setup is part of the process. But yeah, I think to your point, or to Talisha, am I saying it right?
Talisha.
Okay. Talisha, to your point, up until now, everything is fine. I've been using the pro tips and I really kind of took my time with the key factors list, maybe a little bit more than I should have, but I'm going to move on to 2.2 now and see how that works out. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Noelle, what about you? Are you able to kind of block off some time or are you having to do it in big chunks?
No, yeah, definitely blocking off time works better because if you don't say I'm doing it during this time, it doesn't get done. So yeah, definitely that pro tip has been in action of blocking off some time.
Yeah. I think everybody everybody I've ever run into and encountered that does this has confirmed that blocking off intentional time to do it is the right way. We don't always get to, but it is definitely the best way to do it. So when you can do it, and hold true to that as much as you can. Fantastic. Well, I have Heather in the office with me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself on mute because she's literally sitting right over there. So you get the infinity volume. So I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to give her a chance to pipe in with any comments or thinking that she has.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I always learn something. This is year 20 for me. But believe it or not, I am learning right along with you. And I thought there were some fantastic questions. If there's anything I can do to be helpful, I hope you'll reach out. Certainly Kelly is your brave and fearless leader through this. But just so delightful to see you all. Anything I can do for anybody before we sign off? All right. Well, we do appreciate it, and I will see most of you in person and training this summer, and I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.